It wasn't just me. They were taking all my favorite people. Will you check under the bed and make sure there's no Disney executives under there?
Help? From you? Spare me your white savior complex.
Did Rachel Zegler just snap after South Park dragged her Snow White remake? Rumors say she's fuming over how brutally the show parodied her in the film. Behind the scenes, chaos. And now Disney might be scrambling to fix it all. Stick around. Don't forget to hit subscribe. The Snow White remake had always been a risky move for Disney, but things really started heating up when Rachel Zegler began openly criticizing the 1937 original. In interviews, she called the plot outdated and said her version of Snow White wouldn't be saved by a prince or focused on true love. That shift in tone didn't sit well with longtime fans who adored the classic for what it was.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
At first, the backlash trickled in slowly. Some viewers chalked it up to creative evolution, but others weren't so forgiving. Online, discussions quickly turned into heated debates. People weren't just questioning the film's direction. They were starting to question whether Rachel Zegler even respected the legacy she was stepping into. Her words, though meant to highlight progress, were viewed by many as dismissive. Then came rumors of behind-the-scenes issues. It was becoming clear this wasn't going to be a smooth rollout for Disney. But just when things were starting to calm down a little, an unexpected twist dropped like a bombshell, and it came from one of the boldest shows on television. Because when South Park joins the conversation, you know things are about to get wild. When the new South Park episode aired, nobody expected what came next. The creators, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, are no strangers to poking fun at pop culture. But this time, they took aim squarely at the Snow White remake, and specifically, Rachel Zegler. In a now viral scene, the animated parody depicted a character eerily similar to Rachel, exaggerated to the extreme. She was shown giving long-winded rants about the original Snow White being problematic and insisting the remake would save society. It was over the top, yes, but many viewers instantly noticed how closely it mirrored actual interviews Zegler had given. Clips from the episode exploded across social media. Memes popped up everywhere. Fans and critics alike began dissecting every frame, pointing out how accurate, albeit exaggerated, the jokes were. The comedic portrayal struck a nerve, not just because it was funny, but because it tapped into growing frustrations fans had been voicing for months. The episode didn't just mock Rachel, it mocked Disney's whole approach to rebooting beloved classics under the banner of modern values. And that's when things really spiraled. Because while the internet was having a field day laughing, things reportedly weren't so lighthearted behind the scenes. That's where Rachel's alleged reaction enters the picture, and from all accounts, it wasn't pretty. According to insiders, Rachel Zegler wasn't just upset, she was livid. The South Park parody wasn't something she took lightly. Rumors swirled that she felt humiliated, even betrayed by how far the mockery went. She allegedly believed the show had crossed a line, painting her as a caricature instead of a professional actress trying to reimagine a classic. There were whispers that Rachel wanted to respond publicly, to clarify her comments, defend the film, and push back against the way she was being portrayed. But Disney had other ideas. The studio reportedly advised her to stay silent, fearing that a public reaction would only pour fuel on the fire. That silence, however, sparked its own storm. Fans noticed Rachel's sudden absence from promotional appearances. Talk shows where she was expected to appear canceled without explanation. Officially, Disney blamed scheduling issues, but behind the scenes, many believe it was all part of a larger strategy to minimize further controversy. The emotional toll was real. For someone once hailed as the next big star, being told to step back while the world laughed couldn't have been easy. It felt like her voice was being taken away just when she needed it most. And just when you thought the situation couldn't get any more tangled, another layer of drama began bubbling to the surface, one involving her own co-star. As the parody continued to dominate online conversations, Disney was reportedly in full-blown crisis mode. Executives, including CEO Bob Iger, were said to be holding near-daily meetings, trying to figure out how to steer the Snow White project back on track. The remake had already undergone reshoots, delays, and internal disagreements, but the South Park episode took things to a whole new level. What had started as a bold reimagining of a beloved fairy tale was now turning into a marketing nightmare. The brand's reputation was on the line, and Rachel Zegler, once a selling point, had become a polarizing figure. Some inside the company reportedly questioned whether keeping her at the forefront of promotions was still worth the risk. Disney had been banking on nostalgic appeal and modern messaging to draw audiences in. Instead, they now faced a situation where the backlash was louder than the buzz. Every time a new meme surfaced or a clip from the parody went viral, it reminded people of the growing disconnect between fans and the filmmakers. The pressure wasn't just on the movie, it was on the entire Disney machine. Could they afford to stay quiet, or would stepping in make things worse? And as all eyes turned to the studio, tension between the film's leading ladies was becoming the next flashpoint. As if the spotlight on Rachel wasn't intense enough, new rumors started swirling about her relationship with Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen in the film. At a recent public event, fans noticed that the two stars seemed to keep their distance. No eye contact, no interactions, no joint interviews. This only fueled speculation. Had something gone wrong behind the scenes? Sources claimed there had been tension during filming, especially when it came to scene control. One particularly persistent rumor suggested that Rachel was unhappy about Gal's improvisations during key scenes, believing they drew focus away from Snow White herself. In a movie already under scrutiny, even small creative disagreements could snowball into something much larger. Some fans even pointed out that the South Park parody included a scene where the Snow White characters screamed at the evil queen for stealing the spotlight, a moment that hit a little too close to those real-life rumors. Whether the feud was real or exaggerated, it painted a picture of a production riddled with conflict. And while the studio remained silent, the internet filled in the blanks, making things worse. But then, a new twist emerged, on Rachel's own social media. Not long after the South Park episode aired, fans started noticing something strange on Rachel Zegler's social media. Her posts became more vague, more emotional, filled with cryptic quotes and subtle jabs that many believed were indirect references to the parody. One message in particular stood out, a post about being misunderstood and feeling silenced. Was she calling out Disney, responding to the parody, or just venting her frustration? The internet couldn't agree. Her supporters argued she was being unfairly targeted, reduced to a punchline for simply expressing her opinion. Others believed she was only fueling the fire by refusing to take accountability for how her words had been received. This divide wasn't just about Rachel. It became a much bigger conversation about the role of storytelling, the pressure of fame, and whether classic tales should be updated or left alone. It also raised a difficult question. Was Rachel being silenced by corporate interests, or was she being protected from making things worse? And while the conversation raged on, critics began looking at the bigger picture, the growing pattern behind all these reboots and remakes. The Snow White controversy exposed more than just a few bad headlines. It opened the floodgates on how audiences view Hollywood's obsession with reboots. For many, the issue wasn't Rachel Zegler personally. It was the feeling that studios were no longer honoring what made original films special. Every time a beloved story is remade, there's a balancing act. Stay too close to the source, and it feels stale. Go too far with modernization, and it feels disrespectful. Snow White 2025 seemed to land right in the middle of that conflict, trying to update a classic while still riding on its legacy. But what happens when that balance is lost? South Park's parody didn't just make fun of a movie. It reflected the growing frustration fans feel when studios remake stories with a checklist instead of a heart. People aren't just watching these films, they're comparing them to cherished memories, emotional ties, and childhood favorites. And when those expectations aren't met, the backlash can be fierce. Rachel's attempt to modernize Snow White might have come from a sincere place. But the louder the messaging, the harder it became to connect with the audience. Which brings us to the biggest question yet. Where does that leave her now? What started as a simple fairy tale remake turned into one of the most talked about Hollywood dramas in recent memory. Between bold interviews, media silence, online backlash, and now South Park's brutal parody, Snow White 2025 is already infamous, before it's even hit theaters.
So we want to hear from you.
Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what's coming next.